Hello, and welcome to episode 15 of the Property Pilot Podcast. I am your host, Brian Graham, and this episode is going to be focusing on different types of real estate investing different types of residential real estate investing and how to invest in them and how you can maximize your return. So let's take it back to the beginning, the basics of the goals. Like, what are your goals? What are you trying to achieve? Personally, I'm going to use my goals as the example and the foundation for this entire episode. So my goal is to increase cash flow as much as possible at the same time as I'm trying to increase my return on investment. Meaning I've created the snowball, I've pushed it downhill, and I'm trying to grow that snowball as big as possible, which means I'm trying to get my money to work as hard for me as possible. If what that means is I need to use debt. In a nutshell, I need to use debt. If I buy a $100,000 property cash and I rent it out for $1,000 a month, I'm only going to make 12 grand a year. After expenses, I'm going to make positive cash flow 10 grand a year. After property taxes, insurance, 10 grand a year, that's a 10% return on my 100 grand. But if I bought that property with debt, I'm going to turn that into what could be a 20-25% return depending on the interest rate. So, and the type of property. So I need to use debt. The more debt I have, the higher my return. So that's my goal. And that's the goal we're going to be using for the foundation of this episode. So let's talk about the types of residential real estate investing. I need to figure out the type of real estate I'm investing in. There's many different strategies you can use, of course, but I'm going to dumb this one down to really just talk about long-term rentals. Long-term rentals in the specific type. I'm not calling it a class because I define classes of real estate as one would be residential, one would be commercial, and so on. Now, you could argue that when you're talking about classes, single-family home is a certain class, multifamily home is a certain class, commercial multifamily like apartment buildings is a certain class, and then you have leasing to businesses like, Wawa, which would be a whole nother class of commercial real estate investing. Well, I'm just going to refer to the two classes as commercial real estate investing and then residential real estate investing. So today we're focused on the residential. Then we're going to have different types of residential real estate investing. So there are two categories of residential real estate investing. We have single family home and then we have multifamily home. Obviously, a single family home is pretty easy and descriptive. You're going to be having a one dwelling unit in that structure. So this would be, usually you're renting to a single person or a family that's a 3-bed, 1-bath house, 3-bed, 2-bath house, 1-bed, 1-bath house, and so on. So those would be one dwelling unit at that structure. Whereas multifamily properties are going to be 2 to 4 units of residential real estate. Anything above 4 units would be classified as anything 5 units or above would be classified as commercial real estate investing. That is when you would go to a mortgage company and ask them for a mortgage, you would apply and they would say, let's see what the income of the property is. And they would value that real estate based on the income, not what the market says, because it's very hard to find 5 units plus in any given area. And so they can't appraise it based on the competition or the comparables of other sold properties located in the area. There's not that many. So they're going to value it based on the income it produces. So back to residential. So residential real estate, you have the single family home, you have multifamily, 2 to 4 units. So that would be 2 units is a duplex, 3 units is a triplex, 4 units is a quadplex. So when you're buying real estate, again, talking about your goal and how you can maximize that investment. So we'll start with single family home. I purchased a single family home for $100,000. And again, I'm using basic terms and criteria here, basic knowledge of real estate where I'm going to put 20% down. I put $20,000 down on that $100,000. I'm buying a 3-bed, 2-bath house and I'm renting it to, let's say, a family for $1,000 a month. I need to use debt, obviously. So I have a mortgage for $80,000, property taxes, insurance, all of those expenses. I'm probably going to net cash flow, let's say $200 to $250 a month. maximum, especially with today's interest rates upwards of 7 to 8% for an investment property. That's not great, but $200 a month times 12, you're at 2,400. Your all-in investment is 20 grand. So you do the math. You're slightly above a, 11, 12, 13% return. It's not the best. So let's figure out how you can maximize that. So you just charge that family $1,000 a month. Well, what you can do instead to a single family home is, one, you could turn it into an Airbnb. However, this podcast episode is not really talking about short-term rentals because those are whole different numbers, and the mortgage companies are going to be much more strict with you before they lend you any money. So what you could do is rent out each room. So you have a 3-bed, 2-bath house, and you can get creative with who you're renting out to. You could contact local colleges to see if there's any students. You could contact local colleges and their sports teams to see if you'd like to maybe tell the coach that your property is for list, and then have the coach send an email out to the players. You could contact the local hospital. The hospital always has traveling nurses, traveling doctors that they always need to rent for short term, meaning 6 to 12-month rentals. Or rather, those are called midterm, around the 6-month time frame. But you're renting out the room. You could also just post on, Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace that you're renting out the room individually. Now, the demand for housing is very high. You take that 3-bedroom apartment and you're renting out each room for, let's say, 3-bedroom house. Each room's for $500. Instead of renting out to a family for $1,000, now you could be renting out each individual room for $1,500 total. That's a significant change to your return on investment. Now you're maximizing that single family home. Where you were making $200 a month, now you've just added another $500 on top of that. Now you're at $700 a month. 700 times 12, you're at $8,400 from a $20,000 investment. Again, you do the math. You're looking close to a 40% return. That's absolutely outrageous. So when you talk about how hard your money works for you, I mean, that's almost as good as it gets for a single family home. 40% return, there is no chance you're going to find that in any normal ETF or, stock fund, mutual fund, whatever. You're getting 8 to 10% year over year instead of 40 year over year. I mean, that's pretty tremendous. And that is very doable. So you have to strategically find what property you're going for, what single family home you're going for, and where, because you got to have those local, hospitals or, colleges that are nearby where you can rent out room to room. If you don't have that stuff nearby where it draws people into that area, I think you might be difficult to rent out room to room, because then you're just finding 3 random people and, they may not want to live together. You're probably not going to find 3 women that are willing to do that. That's less likely. My guess is if you did, in a shot of dark, find 3 random people, it's probably going to be 3 guys. Just a guess. I've never thought to do that strategy simply because it could be higher risk. 3 strangers living in a house together could maximize your return, but also could get a little messy as 3 random people that may not live well together. So it is a little higher risk from that perspective. Now, moving forward to the duplex of the multifamily homes. So the duplex would be your 2-unit building. Now, previously in a single family home, I could go to a mortgage company and I could put 15 or 20% down on that property from, a typical lender. Now, if I go to a duplex, the lending terms are going to be a lot different. Minimum, I'm going to have to put down 25%. They're not going to let me do that because they know it's probably not going to be my primary residence. So they're going to require more equity because it's more risk for them. If it is my primary residence, the laws have changed now. I could actually come out of pocket 5% and live in one side and then rent out the other. Now that is the golden strategy, where we call house hacking, where you can maximize your return on investment. So again, using just basic numbers, if I buy a duplex for $100,000 and there's 2-bed, 1-bath units, one on, the left, one on the right, or one downstairs or one upstairs unit, all I have to do is agree to with the mortgage company, I'm going to live there for 1 year, and then I can move out and do the same thing with another property. But at 5% down with $100,000 purchase price, I'm putting $5,000 down. My all-in expenses could be upwards of $800 a month, give or take. Now, the other unit could rent for anywhere between $700 to $800. So I'm, currently working in my job. The other unit is paying, 90 to 100% of my overall property expenses. So now I'm living for free. My return on investment technically is zero because I'm not positively cash flowing, but now they are paying down my paying down my mortgage with the rent. So if you want to even get more technical, the tax benefits I receive, the equity pay down I receive, the possible appreciation I receive from it, those are increasing my return on investment tremendously. If it's 3% from appreciation, I get tax deductions from doing whatever I was from the income that it also creates. And then I get the equity pay down, which could be $40, $50 a month. So those are maybe not positively cash flowing. So it maybe zeroes out or I break even. But again, significant that I can now live technically for free. And I highly consider you do that. That would be house hacking. Now, let's say that, I'm all in for $5,000. I lived there for 1 year. I lived there basically rent free, mortgage free. That the renter was paying down my mortgage for me. And now I move out. I currently rent out my apartment now for $800 a month. So previously, the other tenant was paying me $800. I was breaking even. Now this tenant's paying me $800. And in the next 12 months, my positive cash flow is 800 times 12. I'm at $9,600. Well, my all-in investment to the property was $5,000. So just 2 years later, I've made a positive cash flow of $9,600 because I've lived there for 1 year. The next year I'm at $9,600. I've almost doubled my money in terms of the positive cash flow. So my return on investment would be 98%, give or take. I mean, that is outrageous. I guess technically it would be 50%. Sorry, because the first year I made zero. The second year I made it all back. So that would be about 50% return. That's ridiculous. Who wouldn't take that? Now that's with house hacking. And that's the way to maximize the return. Now, what if I didn't house hack? What if I lived there? What if I bought the property 25% down and rented out both from the get-go? Well, on that $100,000 property, my 25% down would leave about a mortgage of $75,000. So my all-in expenses would be roughly $600 to $700 a month. I rent out both units for $800. I'm at $1,600. $1,600 minus, let's say, I even round up $800. So 1,600 minus 800. Again, my positive cash flow is $800 a month times 12. I'm at 9,600. 9,600 divided by $25,000 investment. You're all in. Your return on investment's anywhere between 30%, between 25 and 30%, give or take. So, I mean, again, who would not take that? So now with multifamily, those type of properties are very findable. You just have to find the right areas. And I'm having great success with multifamily properties in rural or sub-suburban areas where the population's anywhere between 7 to 10,000 people, because the suburban area I'm in has about 40 to 50. And then this is just outside of that within 30 minutes. So in even the metropolitan areas within 45. So where you may think where there's a lot of people that don't like to live in the city, but make a city metropolitan wage that are willing to live in these rural areas where real estate is not that high and they may not want to own. I just got a renter to the property I bought it for about $89,000. It was a triplex, and the unit I just listed for rent was for $825. The person is a teacher that makes $50,000 isn't a lot of money, but it's no joke either. And so they decided that they're gonna, uh, rent instead of buy, because they could easily buy $100,000 property on a salary of $50,000. The mortgage company would look at it and go, "Oh yeah, you qualify for this easy," but he decided to rent, and so therefore helps me out. So those properties for 100 grand are very findable. The people that are renting them are also very findable. It's not just because the population is 7 to 10,000 that the demand's not high. The demand is high. And there's also a lot of these people that are located in these areas that don't have a high wage, and they need affordable housing. And $700 to $800 a month is affordable. And the criteria I use is usually your income has to be 3x the amount of rent. So if I'm charging $800 a month, you have to bring in at least $2,400 a month. And there's plenty of people that are doing that, but it's very difficult to find housing for them because the demand is high. I have, in that same property I'm talking about, it was a 2-bed, 1-bath unit. And within 24 hours, I had four people contact me. And again, this is a population of 7 to 10,000 in this area. Can you imagine if I listed a 2-bed, 1-bath house in a metropolitan area? It would have been gone within an hour. So I highly recommend that you don't get so caught up in these metropolitan areas where you believe that if you're not in them, you're losing or you can't make any money. Because if you do look in these metropolitan areas, you're often looking at home prices that are at the very minimum $400,000 to $500,000. And if you've watched any other of my podcast episodes, you would notice that I talk a lot about the 1% rule. And the 1% rule means that you're going to have to rent out those properties for about $4,000 to $5,000 a month. There's not many places in the country that you can find where the rent is $4,000 to $5,000 a month. I mean, that is extremely high. I live in Maryland, and that is one of the top 5 states for highest cost of living. And I still can't think off the top of my head without, finding a mansion, what an average rent is. There's apartment complexes around here, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3 bedrooms, that are between 2,000 to 3,000. But very rarely will I ever see anything above 3,000. I really can't think of a single place I've ever seen. So if you're looking at these metropolitan areas and you're finding these homes that are $400,000, $500,000, it's no wonder that you're scared to invest, because in my opinion, especially now in today's market with inflation of home prices, the increase in interest rates, you cannot get a return on those properties. You have to find more rural or suburban areas where the demand is high. Still, the demand is high, and people are willing to commute or work remotely from these specific properties you're looking at. So then we move forward to triplexes and quadplexes. The same concept that I just spoke about, the duplex, applies to the triplex and quadplex. All the same rules apply as it comes to down payments, as it comes to the way you achieve a mortgage, the qualification purposes, as well as the ability to put 5% down on these properties. You put 5% down, and again, you try to house hack. That is the way to maximize that return. And then you move out after a year, and you're talking about doubling or tripling your investment, even just after a year or two. And then you can continue to own that property and rent it out for quite some time. The purpose of those multifamily properties is going to be cash flow. And that's my overall goal. So I'm finding high success right now with high cash flow properties in rural suburban areas where, it can help me generate income month after month. So upwards of $70,000 to $80,000 a year from high cash flow properties. If you're sitting on the sideline waiting for appreciation to happen, well, right now the Fed is trying to control appreciation with high interest rates. They don't want properties to keep rising and rising and rising, because it doesn't make sense. They've still become unaffordable, whether it's through cash, you're putting out tons more money, or it's through high interest rates. If the properties just keep rising in price, eventually no one can afford them. So the interest rates are there to kind of cap things on that appreciation for the time being anyway. And once the interest rates come down, I mean, you're going to see another feeding frenzy. But it's just to be determined when that happens, and it's to be determined how far the interest rates have to come down. I think right now with the national average being around 6.5 to 7.5, if it comes to 6 or right below 6, you're going to see another feeding frenzy. Um, so the next type of residential real estate would be studio or efficiency apartments, which you would see mainly in um, multifamily properties. You're not really going to see that by itself. You would see studio apartments in apartment complexes, or you would see studio or efficiency apartments, quote unquote, in single family, in multifamily. Now, it could be, and this is like a gray area. If you buy a single family home that has an ADU, an additional dwelling unit on it, that would be like a mother-in-law suite, an in-law suite. Um, you have to check and see your local laws if you're actually allowed to rent out that unit as well. If you're a single family home, and let's say I buy a single family home for me, and then I have an in-law suite, and let's say in-laws are living there, that would be allowed. But I don't know if it would be allowed if I rented it out to a stranger. A local law may have a rule against that, that you have to use your ADU or your additional dwelling unit for family. So that would be interesting. I've never actually looked that up. So that would be interesting. Just make sure you don't get caught and, renting it out and then something happens. And then they say you're screwed because the law says you couldn't rent it out, but you did anyway. But what the efficiency units I'm talking about are, if I buy a duplex or a triplex or a quadplex, and let's say it used to be, if I buy a duplex and then I turn it into a triplex because let's say the attic had a ton of space and I remodeled it and finished it. I added plumbing and now it has a bathroom, and it like a full bath, and it has a small kitchen, and the living room is the same as the bedroom, so a place for somebody to sleep. Now this would be like an extremely affordable place. So let's say the duplex had a normal two units, 2 bed, 1 bath, 2 units, very simple, very easy to picture. And then the attic was enough for a studio or efficiency apartment. So if each unit's paying $700 a month, the efficiency unit, I may charge $400, but that has a significant impact on my investment. I may be able to finish that efficiency apartment for $10,000. So it costs me 10 grand, let's say even 15 grand. But if I can charge 400 a month, 400 times 12, I've now put out of pocket 15 grand, making $4,800 a month. That's close to a 30% return. I mean, that's significant just by finishing extra space in my duplex to turn it into a triplex with that efficiency apartment. Now that it's probably called efficiency apartment because you're getting extremely efficient with space, time, and money to quickly snowball that return. So I'll leave it there, everyone. I hope you really enjoyed this episode, again, where we talk about the investing in different types of residential real estate. I hope this was very helpful and how you can maximize that return. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week for episode 16. The advice and recommendations I offer are intended to be informative and educational, drawing from my own experiences in the real estate market. It is crucial to recognize that every investment decision carries risk and outcomes may vary. I am not a financial advisor, and the information provided during these podcast episodes is not intended as financial, legal, or professional advice. It is your responsibility to conduct thorough due diligence, seek the advice of qualified financial professionals, and make informed decisions based on your individual financial situation and goals.